I'm Asterales Sedai of the Yellow Archer. Here is a recap for non-book readers of Season 1, Episode 2, Shadows Waiting, of The Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime. If you're like me and can't get enough positive Wheel of Time content in your life, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Spoiler warning, I will be discussing characters and events up to Episode 2, but nothing that happens differently or later in the books. This is safe as long as you've seen Episode 2. Let's go! This episode opens to a forest clearing with a camp made up of immaculately ordered white and gold fringed tents. Walking through the camp are men dressed in similarly coordinated white and gold fringed robes. A nervous boy brings a silver platter as a gift to one of the high-ranking officers. He questions someone off-screen, and we see that the dish is a small fried whole bird. He pops the entirety of it into his mouth, crunching in pleasure and satisfaction. The person he's taunting is a woman dressed in yellow and tied to a stake. She's bleeding from the head, and her hands have been cut off. As he taunts her, he slides a ring with a yellow stone from one of her severed hands and adds it to his belt. Oh dear, this is a yellow Aes Sedai. Why isn't she fighting back with the one power, like we saw Moraine doing in the Two Rivers battle from the last episode? Is it because she's injured? In an alarming turn, it looks like there are already 6 other Aes Sedai rings there. This guy is prolific. He goes on to watch her burn as entertainment. We now see the full opening intro sequence to the Wheel of Time. It begins with a single white thread, fraying and breaking, followed by a burst of gold thread being woven into a new fabric. These threads combine to form the faces of different women. This is revealed to be an artwork of 7 women in a circle, each wearing coloured regal robes: green, grey, red, white, yellow, blue, and brown. This artwork swells to become the Wheel of Time logo. It looks like our Two Rivers party, escorted by Moraine, have travelled a significant distance since we saw them riding out of the village, and they are now following a river's edge. Lan is catching up to them, and we see why. He has been scouting behind to track the Trolloc army, which is still chasing our heroes down. They cross the shallow waters, but so do the Trollocs. Night falls, and they reach the end of the road. While there is a town nearby, Moraine says it will not provide safety. Only deep water will stop the bad guys. Conveniently, there is a ferry crossing right there, if they can rouse the ferryman to take them. As they push off, the Trollocs reach the wharf, and Moraine is right. They don't get into the water, and in the pushing and shoving, one unlucky one falls in and does not surface again. The cloaked rider makes its way to the front of the wharf, and we see there really are hundreds of Trollocs chasing them. It pauses and then unleashes a scream, presumably in frustration, that also reveals several rows of disgusting teeth. Once they're on the other side, Moraine urges the ferryman to follow them to safety, but he insists on returning. She only needs to glance at Lan, and he obediently goes to action, chopping the ferry ropes with his sword. As the ferry floats to the middle, she draws on the one power to catch it in a whirlpool. Mr. Ferryman is upset and calls her a monster. He jumps in to save his ferry, but the villagers are stunned as Moraine does nothing to save him, and he goes down with his metaphorical and literal ship. The next day, we get more galloping and more of Lan's scouting. He finally reports that they've lost the Trollocs and it's safe to find a place to rest. At their makeshift camp, Moraine channels on one of the horses. Looks like the one power can wash away even an animal's fatigue, and it gets back up. Mat and Egwene think back on Nynaeve, and Perrin offers that at least if it was quick, she wouldn't have felt a thing. We all know what he's thinking of, with his hunched shoulders and devastated eyes. Rand wants a plan B. He's still very suspicious of this newcomer that has burst into their lives, but Egwene wonders if Moraine might be right. Mat dismisses it as being ridiculous. One of them couldn't possibly be the Dragon Reborn. Moraine interrupts their speculation and tells them to forget what they've heard. The corruption of truth and knowledge is an ongoing theme in this series. Being too suspicious to sleep, Rand chances on seeing Moraine wake Egwene and take her outside. Egwene confronts Moraine on the murder of the ferryman, and through this we learn about the 3 oaths that bind the actions of all Aes Sedai. These are: 1. To speak no word that is not true. 2. To make no weapon with which one person may kill another. And 3. Never to use the one power as a weapon, except in the last extreme defense of her life, or the life of her warder, or another Aes Sedai. Moraine explains it is physically impossible for them to break these oaths, and while she might have made the whirlpool, the ferryman swam to his own death, and she did not have an active hand. Moraine tells Egwene that she has the potential to wield this same power, and she could one day be an Aes Sedai herself. She takes out a piece of jewellery with a blue stone and instructs her to clear her mind and surrender. The blue stone glows a couple of times, and then has a final weak flash. Moraine tells Egwene the last glow was hers, and that Egwene doesn't listen to the wind. It's the wind that listens to her. Perrin stares into the fire, which is shot to look an awful lot like the forge fire we saw in episode 1. He's silent, but we know what he must be thinking. He's also got an injury to his leg, which he's hiding. Clearly, he doesn't trust Moraine to heal it for him. Egwene joins him at the fireside, and in an act of chivalry, he offers her his coat. He asks if she thinks they will ever return home, and she replies simply, no. Rand wakes up and starts coughing. When he tries to get it out, he's gagging and retching, and then pulls out an entire bat. It's the opposite of what we saw the guy in white do at the start of the episode. Rand looks up into the forest and sees an ominous figure fade into existence with glowing red eyes. Waking up for real this time, Rand's relieved to realise that whole bat vomit was just a dream. But then he looks over and the same bat is lying on the forest floor. There are more bats outside that Perrin, Egwene and Mat are examining too. They all saw the bats in their dreams, along with the mysterious figure with glowing eyes. Rand comes to the only logical conclusion for a secluded villager and immediately blames the untrustworthy stranger. It's always the new guy's fault. Lan protectively steps between them. She warns them that dreams are dangerous and that they must tell her if anything like this happens again. It's time to go, but Rand is doing the Two Rivers proud and digging his heels in with a spectacular temper tantrum. He doesn't see the need for them to follow, and he doesn't want to become an errand boy like Lan. Egwene's picked her side and calls him out for his ungrateful behaviour. From her point of view, many more people would have died without Moraine's intervention. Egwene is observant enough to see that even an Aes Sedai can become weak using the One Power to help others, and that nothing comes without a cost. Mat's the peacemaker, reaching out to Rand and acknowledging his concern that Moraine surely has an agenda and they are being used. However, given the lady does shoot fireballs, it's probably best to stay on her good side. Throughout the conflict, Perrin remains silent. There's a lot going on in his head, but he's not sharing it with the world. Back in the saddles and on the move, Lan approaches the party with a single word for Moraine: white cloaks. She immediately removes her ring and gives it to Lan to hide. The groups meet, and these white cloaks are the same people we saw at the start, the ones who burn Aes Sedai for a living. They are questioned by their leader, and Moraine is able to give vague enough responses to satisfy him. But that's not quite enough for his 2IC, Mr. Bird-Eating Man, who makes an excuse of searching Moraine with inappropriately wandering hands. He touches her wound, and Moraine has to think quickly to come up with answers that are truthful, yet evasive. Interestingly, the lead White Cloak suggests she may require healing from an Aes Sedai. Perhaps they're not all witch-burning zealots like their outfits suggest, and there may be some more moderate factions within this organisation. Once they're safely away, Egwene challenges Moraine for lying to the White Cloak, but Moraine is able to explain how everything she said was the truth, and how much wiggle room there is if you're clever enough to wield your words. We also learn there's no self-heal ability with the One Power. Aes Sedai can only heal others, and not themselves. They cross varying terrain, suggesting significant distances, and we get a glimpse of a broken-down bridge. This is more evidence of a time when civilization was more advanced. With the adrenaline gone, our party are just plodding along. Mat looks back, gauging the mood, and starts up a song. Egwene joins in, and Perrin also comes in to provide the base anchor. Moraine mentions it's good to remember Manetheren, and Mat knows from her voice there's a lecture coming. Manetheren was a great nation in the past that was attacked by the armies of the Shadow. They lasted more than was to be expected, despite being against the odds, but finally fell because they were betrayed by their allies who promised support but never showed up. Their queen felt her husband, the king, fall in the battle, and in a final supreme act, she channeled an impossible amount of the One Power, destroying both the army and herself. The descendants of the people she saved are the people of the Two Rivers. They find themselves a safe spot to stop for the night. Egwene and Rand are still trying to sort out where they are with their relationship, and Perrin is alone, sensibly filling up water bottles. As he examines his leg wound, he is approached by a pack of wolves. He meets the eye of one that approaches, and surprisingly, the wolf doesn't attack, but licks his wound. They run away and leave Perrin astonished. At night by the campfire, it is clear that Moiraine's injury is starting to overwhelm her. That night, Egwene is startled awake and looks up to see the same Dark Rider from the ferry crossing on a nearby cliff face. They've been found. The chase is back on, and on Lan's instructions, they head to the nearest landmark, a place called Shadar Logoth. Before reaching the walls, the horses stop. They don't want to go further. Disturbingly, even the Trollocs stop and give up the chase. They enter the city into deathly silence, with the only sound being their horses. There's absolutely nothing living here. No birds, no bugs, not even plants. Settling them into one of the larger abandoned buildings, Lan warns them to be careful and gives them a brief history of the city's horrific past. It's more than they've ever heard him speak. Mat questions why they are brought here, and just like toddlers disobeying their parents, Rand steps outside to look around and marvel before being joined by Egwene. Off again, on again, their relationship is complex. Mat has remained inside and goes to join a brooding Perrin. He offers him the knife that his blacksmith's wife made as a remembrance keepsake. It's a beautiful gesture, and Perrin thanks him, words Mat has probably never heard very often in his life. As the party are sleeping in the night, we hear the same whistling tune from the Dark Rider and Padan Fain the Peddler in episode 1. Mat wakes, and it's his turn to wander around, straight up ignoring Lan's instructions. He sees a shadow of movement and follows it into a room where he finds a helpfully lit loot box containing a very fancy ruby-hilted dagger. Thinking his luck might finally be turning around, he takes the dagger in replacement of the blade he's just given to Perrin. Outside, a black mass creeps up and consumes one of the horses. The horse disintegrates and becomes part of the same black mass. Moiraine wakes and with her dying breath points out what a man has done wrong. But this is no joke. She can't say words that are untrue, so she genuinely believes it's the end for them. We transition to the ultimate floor is lava game, and our party becomes separated in the process. Egwene and Perrin escape the city by dramatically jumping off the city walls into water below. Rand and Mat escape by kicking their way through a sewer pipe. The black mass retreats, unable to go past the city walls. Lan escapes on horseback, carrying the injured Moiraine, and her well-trained white horse follows obediently. Note, this is a different hole in the wall from their entrance point. Guess the Trollocs are still waiting at the other one. They're not too bright. Deeper into the woods, Lan stops to gently lay down Moiraine, who's now at death's door. As he tends to her, a Trolloc blade is laid to his throat. Brandishing this knife is Nynaeve. She's alive! Covered in dirt, she's defiant and angry. She threatens to kill him if she's not reunited with her friends. And there's our cliffhanger ending. Thanks for watching. If you liked my spoiler-free summary of this episode, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for future updates. And remember, yellows make the world a better place.